Hey guys, it's Spaces Sims, and we are back with Mulla Paradigm Paradox, and we are going to get our grand finale route, which also includes the common route endings, like the justice and the villainous justice endings. So, we are... Well, it says start a new game and then open flowchart. Can't open the flowchart now? And this is the common route, right? Ah, okay. Oh, there's a bad ending there. Huh. Shouldn't we... That's probably the bad ending is there is when you choose. It says start... it says 2-2 from the common route, so... Okay. Right, because... Okay, yeah. Right, this is where we're supposed to start. The music just sounds really loud in my ears, but... Humans, obviously. Hold on, let me turn off my thing for a hot second. It's just my system is down. Okay. All right, okay. And then... I mean, I guess we could have just done anything else, but hey, whatever. We could have started actually from the thing instead of the flowchart, but it says start new game, open flowchart. I mean, didn't really need to do one or the other. You can't really do both, to be fair. Starting a new game starts from the very beginning, and then there's a lot of other choices that we make. But anyway, I see smoke rising from town. That's a new choice. We never had that one before. I can see smoke over there. I have to make sure everyone got away. Pant. Okay, anyway. Should have... breathing. Anyway, I dashed out of the academy and found the streets leading to the dorms in chaos. Wow. The buildings are wrecked, but I don't see any injured people. The streets were a mess, but nobody was around. Perhaps they were hiding inside. Not a Vector was in sight either. If they're not here, Lizzie might still be okay. But my chest remained heavy with dread as I ran into town. It looked as if everyone had evacuated the area. I transformed just in case. The area is a huge mess, too. The buildings were badly smashed up, and that wasn't all. No! There were people sprawled all over the ground. I dashed over, and my worst fear was quickly confirmed. They'd been attacked by Vectors. Okay, no, this is... Okay, it's similar, but... This is terrible. They need medical help. As I looked around in a panic, I spotted a familiar face among the fallen bodies. Lizzie? For a second, I refused to believe she was here. Why was she even in the crowd? Okay, here's the problem. My problem with this. This is essentially the same as every other route, but it's just a different, like, running to the smoke or whatever. But we always end up kind of here seeing Lizzie. So, like, why did you... Yeah, I don't know. Anyway. It's like, yeah, no, I get it. She got it. Anyway, can we move on to the stuff I haven't read or, like, plot that we haven't gotten to and not the same things over and over? Oh. I almost stumbled as I ran to look at her. It was Lizzie, not a dream, not an illusion. I had to accept the reality of what I was seeing. Lizzie, hold on, I'll get you some help. I promise I'll save you. My mind scrambled for ideas as I called out to Lizzie. Then I sensed someone approaching. I looked up. Wait, there you are. That girl, she's badly wounded. Did a Vector attack her? At that moment, all the blooms ran over. Knowing I was surrounded by my capable allies made me feel a bit calmer. She's my friend, and so many others have been wounded too. This is a little different, because the last time I think when we actually... Well, no, in the Blooms route we find her with them, but then in the other ones we find her and then the bad guys are there. So, like, whatever. It's still like, we've kind of already sort of seen this kind of scene before, so you changed it a little bit, but not enough, really? But, I mean, I guess it's kind of important because it's like, alright, so now Lizzie's still been attacked, but in the Blooms routes, we had to punch her to death, and then in the Vector routes, she was fine. So, like, where's it going to go this time? You know what I mean? Because this is supposed to be different, obviously. I tried to explain the situation, but my words got all jumbled up. I think I read that. The others looked around the mess and nodded to indicate they understood. Or maybe they were trying to reassure me.
I understand, but we must ascertain what happened here before we can actually act.
I'll remain in town and fight the remaining vectors.
I'll go with you. You three should help the wounded.
Roger that. We'll get to work right away. I know you're worried about your friend, but we're gonna need your help.
Yeah, of course. I was in total agreement, but I couldn't stop myself from gazing back down at Lizzie in my arms. Then I heard someone calling out to us. Hey! Yeah, because Misaki didn't run up to us, I don't think so, and the blooms were out. Commander? It was quite shocking to see him outside the command center, since he usually didn't leave. I can't remember, to be fair.
Sorry I'm late. What's the situation?
The others looked as surprised as I was, but they quickly remembered the urgency of the situation and gave the commander a status report. Well, actually, no, that's not true, because wasn't it Ryu and the commander were there, and then we had to take care of her or whatever? Take care of Lizzie? I feel like we skipped through it. The first route we did it, well, we haven't seen it in a long time, but
Haruka and I are going to handle the remaining vectors, and the other two are going to tend to the wounded. A great decisive action. Ambulances are on the way. I'll direct them at anyone who's hurt, so make sure to signal when you find someone. Then we'll use our comms to report in whenever we find someone who needs help. Good, please do. By the way, that girl there, is she your friend? The commander seemed to notice that I was clinging to Lizzie protectively, though I hadn't said anything about her condition. She's my best friend. It looks like she got tangled up in all this. Now she's badly hurt. Your best friend, huh? I see. I understood that as one of the blooms I had responsibilities. I couldn't just cling to Lizzie, but I was so afraid for her. The commander also seemed strangely conflicted and kept looking at me and Lizzie.
Hey, shouldn't we get a move on already?
Oh, yeah, of course. We're counting on you.
Everyone set off on Haruka's word. I stood up, knowing I too had a duty to perform, but the commander stopped me. You stay here and protect the wounded. There's no guarantee the vectors won't return before the ambulance gets here. Yeah, right. I understand. The commander's tone suggested he was thinking of more than my concern for Lizzie. But before I could ask him if there was a problem, he took out his phone and got in a call. I turned my focus back to Lizzie and the other wounded. The others guided the ambulances with the commander's help. They returned as soon as they were finished.
All ambulances have arrived at their designated dispatch locations, sir.
And I've come through the town. I'm confident all the wounded have been accounted for.
Good job. We're finished, too.
We disposed of the vectors that were still hanging around, right?
The commander stopped talking on his phone long enough to look our way and nod.
Yeah, the higher-ups just gave me confirmation. The vector threat's been taken care of.
We all breathed huge sighs of relief. Then I saw my opportunity to speak up. Excuse me.
You're still here? Wait. And that's your friend there too, right? How's she doing?
Yes, Mocha's question emphasized something concerning. Lizzie hadn't been taken away by an ambulance. I was afraid to leave her side. I tended to her wounds, but the commander said it's better for Lizzie to stay behind than go in one of the ambulances. Okay, so this is different. The commander's like, yeah, let's not, because she's gonna die, like... Instead of you having her taken away and then being like, oh, that was your friend. She's in a hospital. Yeah, no, not that one, the other one. And you're like, this one? And he's like, no, the other one. And you're like, dude. You know what I mean? I threw the commander a worried look, which he met with an unusually serious gaze.
You want to save this girl, right?
I didn't even need to consider my answer.
Of course I do. Why would you even ask me such an obvious question?
My tone was defensive, but Kaori and Haruka spoke up before the commander could reply, because they know what's happening.
Commander, you can't possibly... What do you think you're doing?
The two of them frowned, matching expressions of bewilderment on their faces. Kaori, Haruka, do you know something?
I sure don't. What's going on? I have no idea either. Kaori, Haruka, can you tell us why your friend's been left behind despite her wounds?
The commander looked at Mocha, Sena, and me. He took a deep breath.
I'm about to say something that might come as a shock to the three of you. Please, just listen calmly and carefully.
The commander explained that people who were wounded by vectors turn into vectors themselves. To say it came as a shock was putting it lightly.
No way. I can't believe it. Nor can I, but Kaori, Haruka, neither of you seem very surprised.
Not at all. Did you two know about this? Haruka and Kaori made no attempt to hide the truth. They nodded calmly.
We've been in the research district ever since we were kids.
We've always known.
Wait, so the vectors we've been fighting this entire time? You're telling me they used to be human beings?
My hands flew to my mouth when I heard Mocha's revelation. Kaori, Haruka, and the commander looked away.
No. Then Haruka, Kaori, you fought them despite knowing the truth?
The entire group fell silent. There was nothing more to be said, nothing more to be done. We just stood in an awkward group. Hey, hold on. I'm upset about this whole thing too, but I still need clarification on something. I clutched Lizzie's hand. She was still out cold. Then I turned to the commander. Commander, is Lizzie going to turn into a vector? Can't we stop the transformation somehow? Everyone turned to the commander, clearly wanting to know how he'd answer my question.
If you're bringing this up now, that must... Oh, that's Mocha. If you're bringing this up now, that must mean there's a way to save her, right?
My thoughts exactly. There must be a reason why the commander brought it up out of the blue.
The commander looked at me for a moment, then spoke in a quiet voice.
Of course there's a reason. I can't do anything to stop her from shifting into a vector, but I know someone here who can. Girls, I'd like y'all to stay here with Lizzie and listen to what he has to say. Wait, you mean him?
Sana was looking at someone behind us. We turned and saw a familiar face. Ryo? Ryo Tomatsuka was another person who, like the commander, I rarely saw outside the command center. I couldn't hide my surprise. Ryo knows how to stop the transformation. Does that mean Ryo...
So he's more than just our support staff, then?
Haruka and Kaori seemed to not have expected Ryo and were just as shocked as us. Ryo slowly continued to walk toward us as we stared in bewilderment. He came to a stop in front of the commander.
I know I asked when I called you in, but I'd appreciate an answer now. Can you stop the transformation in its tracks or not?
Ryo blinked calmly, never dropping his cool facade as the commander interrogated him.
Why ask me that? Well, I know for a fact you're in contact with the vectors.
What? I've been quiet up until this point, but I couldn't hold back my exclamation when I heard the commander say that. I wasn't the only one who was shocked either. The others cast wide-eyed, suspicious glares at the commander and Ryo.
Hey, hold on. You're telling me this guy's a spy? He works with the enemy?
Ryo remained calm, even as our emotions flared around him.
Well, I don't appreciate the sudden inquisition, but Misaki isn't wrong. I am indeed in contact with the vectors.
Kaori and the others didn't bother to look to the commander for his reaction. Instead, they dropped into a battle stance. I wanted to join them, but I couldn't leave Lizzie. I moved to stand protectively in front of her.
Make no mistake. You're our enemy. Indeed he is. Why didn't you say something, Commander? We could have dealt with him ages ago.
Indeed, this is hardly the time. I mean, to bring it up now?
Commander, Ryo, would you both please explain what's going on? What's the meaning of all this? Ryo wasn't denying it, which meant he was telling the truth. Only one question remained. Why were we learning this now?
I understand. I'll explain, don't worry. I need you all to calm down first, though. Ryo won't run or try to attack you.
We all looked at Ryo again. At the Ryo again. We all looked at the Ryo again. Wish... At least if they're going to make a typo, that one's fun. Indeed, he was as stoic as ever. He just stood there, totally at ease. I do wish it had been capitalized, though. The Ryo, like, you know, that's his name.
Misaki is correct. I'm not here to pick a fight.
Ryo lifted both hands up on either side of his head, as if to show us he had no intention of attacking. We all remained tense, but we couldn't attack an enemy who wasn't putting up a fight. I mean, we could, but then we'd be assholes, but... All right, I believe you don't mean us any harm. Just answer this. Can you stop Lizzie from becoming a vector? I held my breath as I waited for his response. Rio nodded slightly. Yes, I can. I know a way. Really? Lizzie could be saved. I gazed at Rio with wide, hopeful eyes. I could sense Sena breathe a big sigh of relief next to me, too. The tension seemed to drain from her body. And that means we'll be able to save her friend along with all the other wounded people? Rio nodded, but just as we started to feel relieved, he said something that shocked us to our cores. But Moravia's help is vital for stopping the transformation process. Hearing the name of our enemy caused us all to instinctively tense up again. But Rio doesn't seem to be lying. If he really means it, then... Moravia, so you're telling us we don't have a choice but to receive help from the Vectors? The commander remained calm, as if he was expecting Rio's answer. I figured it might be the case. What? It's why I called Rio here. I need you to get in contact with them ASAP.
Wait, this whole mess. It's the Vector's fault, and now you're saying we have to turn to them for help.
That's right. They're the ones who caused this. That is true. I don't want these people to turn into Vectors, of course, but I loathe the idea of being indebted to our enemy.
Yeah, it doesn't sit right with me either.
The others murmured their disapproval. I wasn't even sure I could accept the terms myself. I understand how everyone feels, but I looked down at Lizzie's battered form and found I couldn't completely agree with them. Time was running out for Lizzie, and we were wasting it debating the issue. So this is why Rio called... Okay. So this is what Rio called me for, Huh? Don't attack the headset. A new voice interrupted our discussion, and I turned to see a certain young man standing there. Wait, you're... He looked so familiar, but his name eluded me. He looked at me and smiled. My name's Ibuki, but you can call me Moravia if you like. Moravia? Before any of us could process what he was saying, Ibuki gave a small hup. He shifted into Moravia before our eyes, and then right back to Ibuki in a flash. And the other, where you're like, whoa! You're a dude that turns into a magical girl? Girls! And you look at the blooms and they're just glancing away, not making eye contact, and just fixing my dress, like, dusting off my shoulder, like, just totally, like, avoiding eye contact. So then you're like, wait, are you all dudes too? Do you believe me now? Which one's the real you? Both are the real me, but for now, I'm Ibuki. The question didn't seem to faze him at all. He had the relaxed air of someone who could afford to be confident because he knew he could never be bested.
You got some nerve coming back here by yourself. Do you really think you could take us on so easily?
The others seemed to share my line of thinking. Our eyes stabbed daggers at Ibuki, but he never lost his mild grin. I do like, though, the fact that, like, with the blooms, it's like, it's a side effect of my powers I turn into a girl, but whatever, I'm kind of used to it. It was weird at first, but, like, you know. But Ibuki, you're like, so which one's your true form? He's like, they're both me. He's like, whatever. Like, I feel like he's just more whichever. I'm both. I'm Moravia and Ibuki. Both of them are me, like 50-50 split. And, like, with the blooms, it's like, yeah, like, their bloom form is a part of them, but they're still like, no, but my guy form, that's me. And then that's a part of me, too, but only because of my powers. But, like, and they didn't really touch on it, but they kind of maybe give you the impression that, like, when they lose their abilities and they can't transform, they're like, huh. It's a little bit of a, like, I mean, that was a part of me for so many years, but it's not like, you know, when Ayamu gets stuck as Haruka, you know what I mean? Where that's gotta be more difficult for him to process than he can never transform into Haruka again, because he wasn't born Haruka, you know what I mean? He got technically for him and Tokyo, their bloom form has really always been with them. But for Kamui and Mihaya, it's like they developed that more recently. So I don't think they'd have the connection to their girl form. It'd be like, yeah, I mean, that became a part of me recently. And so, yeah, you might feel a little sad, like, oh, well, now that part of my life's over. But are you sad because you can't transform into a girl anymore, or it's just the superpowers are gone, or like I kind of got used to the fact that I had to transform when I like had my powers, even if you transformed into like a robot or a fucking dog or something, you know what I mean? You're like, it was weird, but it was part of my life for a while, so yeah, you'd miss it. You know what I mean? But I think they'd be get over it a little bit easier. And I feel like Ibuki would be just fucking. I don't know if he could handle it, like being one or the other. Because he's like, they're both me. Like, whatever. Every 5 minutes I can change. One day I just feel like being Moravi, and I'm Moravi all motherfucking day. You know what I mean? It's like one day I feel like wearing a dress, one day I feel like wearing pants. You know? Like, one day I want to put on eyeliner, and one day I just really just want to only wear lipstick. You know what I mean? It's like, it's just like a fashion choice for him. Like, it's just because it's who he is, he's both. But like, so I kind of like though that like, at least with him, like they didn't say anything with anybody negatively. They weren't like, oh God, no, I hate this. This is awful. You know, but Ibuki's been very clear, like basically clear, like, no, they're both me. What ups? And you're like, you know, I don't know. I kind of just like that they put that in there, not like, wait, you've been Moravi the whole time. Anyway, and like, or which one's the real you? And it's like, oh no, Ibuki, that's my natural form. He's like, no, they're both me. Like, whatever. Like, there's no difference for him, you know? Whereas like the other guys, it's like, no, that's my real form, and then my magical girl form is my other form. Still might be a part of me, but it's not. If you had to pick, if you had to say which one is you, they would be like, my dude form, that's me. Because that's who I am a majority of the time and who I was born. You know? Again, even though Ayamu and Tokyo had their abilities as children or in the womb, whatever, they weren't born flip-flopping genders. You know what I mean? Like, that's a side effect of developing powers. And with Ibuki is like, nope, both me. It's like he came out split down the middle. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know, I just like that little tidbit. Like, they're like, he's just, I'm just me. Ibuki's just Ibuki. Or Moravia, depending on whatever hour of the day it is. Anyway. It was as if he couldn't sense our ire. Well, he probably doesn't. Ibuki shrugged and started speaking again. Ibuki could take all of you seriously so easily. I was invited, so here I am. Rio said things were getting pretty complicated, so I decided to come back. But it's not Rio who needs me. It's you all, isn't it? Well, Ibuki was right. It was just as Rio said. We needed Moravia's, Ibuki's help. But you seem uneasy. Do you want me to help you, or do you want me to fight you? Ibuki scanned us with his head cocked to the side. Like it doesn't matter. To him, it's like, I mean, I can help you or I can fight you, whichever. You pick a lane. I'm up for either. I don't mind fighting you, but if you want my opinion, it's not the vectors you should be projecting all that hate and anger towards. I think he knows what I'm getting at. Ibuki dipped his head toward the commander, who stood with a dour expression. You're right, I do know. And I'd go so far as to suggest Kaori and Haruka know too.
Commander!
I had no idea what Ibuki meant, but Haruka and Kaori were pale. His words clearly resonated with them. What? You two kept even more secrets from the rest of us? They've had quite enough. Just come clean. What do you know that we don't? It looks like Mocha and Sana are also in the dark about whatever this is. Does it involve the research district? Ibuki looked from Haruka and Kaori's bloodless faces to the confused faces of Mocha, Sana, and me. Finally, he sighed, sorry. All of you have far too many skeletons in your closets, well, that goes for Rio, too. Work on your communication before you turn your anger on me. He might be onto something. The deadlock between us all was a frustrating thing indeed. I looked down at Lizzie and realized there wasn't a moment left to waste, so I spoke up. Ibuki, please. The only thing I want is to help Lizzie. It's not easy to ask you for help, but I'll shoulder all the responsibility for whatever happens. Just please, help me save Lizzie. Ibuki started walking toward me. Kaori narrowed her eyes, then cried out.
Wait, hold on. Think about this. Once it's done, it can't be undone.
I know that. But how can I keep thinking about this when there's no time left for Lizzie? Asking the Vectors for help might just lead to disaster, but I don't know of any other way to help her. I just don't. I don't have time to feel conflicted about helping Lizzie. This is our man harem ending. Just FYI. I mean, there's probably no romancy stuff in this, like, because, you're not really dating anybody, but I'm just going to say it's the man harem ending because it's everybody's coming together for the greater good, so therefore you get to have whoever you want. And everyone if you want everyone. So, there you go. Kaori swallowed, and Haruka touched her shoulder. Sana, Mocha, and the commander all exchanged glances, then nodded at me. You're right. The first things first, we need to focus on the lives that can still be saved. Commander, his agreement meant a lot, and upon hearing it, Kaori's shoulders slumped as she let it go.
You're right. I shouldn't have been so harsh on you.
Please do not say you shoulder all the blame yourself. We're not that heartless, you know.
Yeah, we know what it's like to want to save someone in front of you that's in trouble.
So for doing this, let us be united in it together, even if it turns out to be the wrong choice.
Their smiles said it all. I wasn't alone. They were there for me. I smiled a little. Commander, everyone, thank you. Kaori nodded briskly before turning to Ibuki and staring him down.
So that's where we are. We don't trust you, but we're relying on you nonetheless.
Don't let our friend turn into a Vector.
If you try anything cute, we'll be on you before you can blink. Don't forget, we're still enemies.
Ibuki absorbed everything silently and then knelt down beside Lizzie. Ooh, CG! Look at that, we get a CG in this! I mean, you figure we could, because there's like a whole other section where there's multiple people and stuff, so, he looks so pretty in it. Look, with this little syringe that he's going to inject Lizzie with. What are you going to do? I'm giving her an antibody shot. It'll stop her from becoming a Vector. Ibuki pulled an object that looked like a syringe from his coat. He brought the needle close to Lizzie. Lizzie's breathing. As soon as Ibuki slid the needle into Lizzie's arm, her labored breathing immediately calmed. So she's going to be all right now? And there's Rio! Yeah, she'll be fine. That's why it's an other CG, because it's multiple people. I hope we get a CG of, like, everybody together, like a end CG. Those are always the best ones to end the game on. It was Rio who answered me, not Ibuki. He was looking at Lizzie's face closely. He then checked her pulse and announced that she had stabilized. I felt like I'd much rather have Rio helping us out instead of Ibuki, who was almost a stranger. Phew. Well, at least Lizzie won't turn into one of those Vectors. I hadn't forgotten about the other wounded who needed help, but I just wanted to think about Lizzie for a moment. I know it's selfish of me, but I can't exactly ask Rio or Ibuki to save every single person who's hurt. But apparently I did a poor job hiding my dissatisfaction. I just saved your friend's life. The least you can do is pretend to be a little grateful. I lifted my head and quickly denied Ibuki. Oh, no, it's not that. Thank you so much for saving Lizzie. Really? So you are happy then? Of course I am. I didn't feel like explaining my discontent, so I made my voice as perky as possible. I cringed inwardly at the shrill sound and blushed. Ibuki looked at me, clearly entertained. Yes, you certainly seem happy. In that case, I would appreciate an award.
Hey, just what are you suggesting?
Kaori jumped in, clearly thinking the conversation was about to go somewhere wild, but Ibuki's response was surprising. Kaori and I are on the same page because I was like, what kind of award do you want? This is the man harem ending as far as I'm concerned, or all of these, because it's like, well, like the grand finale, it seems like we're siding with them, so okay, group, full man harem, but like if there's a justice route and then a villainous justice ending, then I would say the justice one would be just the Bloom's man harem, and the villainous justice would be the Vector man harem, and the grand finale is just the grand man harem. Just so you know. Listen! These games don't let me have thruples or man harems. I never get to share my treats. It's just not fair. All I want is an answer to the question I asked you. Do you remember? The question? I sifted through my memories, but I couldn't recall Ibuki asking me anything. However, when I remembered that Ibuki was also Moravia, yeah, the one that we answered earlier, the first one, it's not that hard to answer. Oh, if that's hard to answer, here's another. Who truly deserves this world? Humans or vectors? Huh? And we answered it, humans maybe? The time you asked me to choose humans or vectors, that's what you're referring to, right? Ibuki grinned widely, pleased that I'd remembered. That was literally like 5 minutes before this conversation, wasn't it? Like, oh, no, it was a different day. Right, because we skipped so fast. No, that was a different time. It was a different night. Okay. Right, that question. I want to hear your answer. Because we saw Moravia at school and then whatever, and then we later were fighting and then we spoke to Moravia. And then, I don't know if that, and then this happened after. So it was like the multiple days ago. Anyway, okay. And don't feel pressured to give it right now. Tell me after you've spoken with your friends. I have nothing but time. I looked around at the others. It was true that there was still a great deal we needed to sort out amongst ourselves. I don't know if talking to them will guarantee that I'll be able to come up with a decent answer. Nonsense. You'll find an answer one way or another. I have faith in you. I wasn't sure Ibuki knew me well enough to be so confident in my abilities. Still, his praise seemed genuine. With that parting remark, Ibuki turned to go. Nobody tried to stop him. I looked around at everyone's faces as they all watched him depart. He must be thinking pretty deeply about what Ibuki told them. We had way too many secrets, and we hadn't even started bringing them into the light. I wasn't sure what Ibuki's words meant, really, but they were powerful enough to make us all stop in our tracks. Lizzie was still unconscious by the time we got her back to the dorm safely. We all reconvened on campus. Normally we gathered in the command center, but given the topic of our discussion, we decided to stay away from the research district. Rio was present at the gathering, too. I'd have expected him to run once we uncovered his alliance with the Vectors, but apparently he didn't. I'm just here as a quiet observer. First and foremost, why don't you sort out your issues? He then leaned against a wall, arms crossed as if to punctuate his unwillingness to continue. Right. Well then, to start off, I can explain what went down in the research district. Tori and Haruka nodded quietly as the commander broached the subject.
Even we still don't know everything about it, so I think that'd be best. I don't know what everyone else is thinking, but Kaori's right, and there's still a lot we don't know.
Mocha, Sana, and I exchanged glances before nodding. No doubt you two know more than we do, but we trust you. Nevertheless, we were raised differently. I apologize for what I said earlier. I shouldn't lay so much of the blame on you. Yeah, we get that there were circumstances beyond anyone's control. There was a pause, and we all took a breath. No matter what we were about to learn, we knew we couldn't get angry with them. Once everyone had regained their composure, the commander began to tell us everything. Understandably, the things he said were met with even more shocked reactions from all of us. So humans turning into vectors isn't a new phenomenon. That's pretty chilling. I like how they didn't go through and have a conversation and make us kind of like, it wouldn't have minded if they were like, he told us about this and this and that, and they bullet pointed it kind of like, that would have been fine, because they've been good at doing that when it's like, he told me about the circumstances behind this and that and whatever, and they kind of still just kind of like the brief recap, but they don't make you go through and go, oh, hey, let's sit down and have a 30-minute conversation and rehash everything you already fucking know. So I was like, please don't fucking rehash everything we know, because this is quote-unquote the common ending. You can't get this unless you've played all the routes. So, like, we know all the info. So, like, don't make us spend 3 hours going through the shit we've spent, like, 50 some odd hours getting already, you know? But, okay. The higher-ups all approved it all, in the casual way they talked about it. Sana and the others trembled with anger. Their voices shook with barely restrained rage.
The vectors were created intentionally. There weren't just humans who turned into vectors after being attacked by one.
They were manufacturing monsters. It's horrible. Turning humans into vectors. Why would they do such a twisted thing?
It started as environmental improvement research. The researchers were trying to figure out how to revitalize the destroyed planet. But somewhere along the way, they switched gears. They started to engineer humans capable of thriving in the wasteland. My heart stung as I looked at the commander. It hurt him to talk about all this, but I still had to give voice to my suspicions. Is it even possible to engineer humans like that? And why did the experiments yield vectors of all things? It was Cowrie who responded.
Yeah, that's genetic engineering. The genes of unborn humans were manipulated so they'd be born with biological adaptations already in place. It's more accurate to say they were raised rather than engineered. The process includes training that carries on long after birth.
A realization dawned on me as soon as Kaori and Haruka took over the explanation. Humans adapted to the environment. Training. Doesn't that all refer to us as well? To our superpowers?
Then there's a chance that we might turn into vectors too. Because based on what you just told us, it sure sounds that way.
It was unbelievable, but we couldn't discount it. I looked at the commander, praying he'd deny it, but he simply shook his head. I mean, that's what I've been saying. We're basically vectors in a way ourselves.
I can't say it'll never ever happen.
No. I thought of all the vectors I had killed. I could wind up sharing their dark fate. I felt like I was finally capable of understanding Ibuki's words. Maybe that's also why the commander's like, yeah, no romantic shit. And you're like, I will never fall in love. And in that one Kamui ending, he's like, I was really hoping you would, because, like, thinking if you fall in love, then you lose your abilities, and then they won't turn into vectors, maybe. We don't know. He's trying to stop people. But also, I mean, that's obviously definitely because he knows exactly your circumstances, has been watching over you, knows who your parents are, and it's like, even though he's like, I have to tell you, you're not no hanky-panky, and he's like, please, God, fall all in love, all of you, like a group thing, whatever. He wants the harem ending, because he's like, then it'll lose their powers, and then it'd be better. So he's on our side like that. So the commander is absolutely backing up our harem dreams. So high five for him. Best side character ever.
Ibuki said, it's not the vectors you should hate. I think he means you should blame the people who brought the vectors into being to begin with.
Yeah, I admit when he said that I couldn't help but picture the researchers' faces.
Especially that one elder researcher, that bastard.
But neither Kaori nor I knew they were actually making vectors. We just thought it happened by accident. If we'd known the truth, we would have started to question our existence too.
I knew you would, and rightly so. That's another reason why I kept it from you.
I looked at the despondent commander, and my next words tumbled from my mouth automatically. Sounds to me like the vectors are actually a success story. They can live and thrive in the outside world.
Ibuki seems like a
successful, well, I don't know why I can't say that in Kaori's voice,
experiment to me. He has the mind of a human, but he aligns with the vectors. Can he survive outside as well?
Everyone's eyes widened as they digested what Kaori and I were suggesting.
Kaori's right. Ibuki must be one of the last subjects who escaped from the research district in the past. I heard way back that a few talented children were born. I also heard one other escaped the lab. Based on rumor, I think that child was Yukonami.
If that's the case, I understand why they traded living as humans for living as vectors.
Yeah, we could have wound up on their side if our paths in life had taken different turns. Both Ibuki and Yukonami, a twist of fate was all that kept their futures from being our futures. The thought made my knees go weak. Honestly, you would have absolutely been even worse off, probably, than Ibuki and Yukonami, because your parents were lab rats. You would have been born a born lab rat. Like, Kaori and Haruka, well, Ayamu and Tokyo were born lab rats. That their parents did genetic modification on them in the womb. Okay? That's different than your parents that was done to them, and then they bred. So you would have been like, whoa, wait. You know what I mean? Like, and that's exactly why Yashima took us away, and Masaki's been kind of watching over us and, like, keeping us out of trouble. And then when we got attacked by a vector, he was like, oh, I just knew. I just had a sense that she was gonna be one of the blooms. Well, and none of the professors or anything thought it was, or the researchers thought it was anything weird that a girl turned into a magical girl instead of a boy turning into a magical girl. Because that should have clued him in. Something was weird about me. But nah, whatevs. You know what I mean? I feel like in one of the other things they were like they suspected or whatever, and they were kind of like, let's just keep an eye on this instead of, whatever. Instead of saying anything right off the bat. But anyway, but like we would have been probably worse off than Ibuki and Yukonami because they were fetuses that were injected with this. We were born from two people who that had been done to. So we're like a different level. You know what I mean? And they would have really loved that. And then just think about that because they were just injecting babies in the wombs, doing all these experiments, whatever. And then imagine as soon as like your parents procreated and they're like, oh, wait. Okay. All right. And then they're experimenting on you. Just imagine the forced fucking breeding that they would do. Like animals. And I said it that way, not like, but because that's exactly what they're treating these people like. They're treating them like lab rats and animals. So they wouldn't do like, hey, let's just hope some of them like fall in love and hook up and like, they'd be like, you two, like, you know what I mean? They'd be like, they would force that, like, I mean, they might actually just do it in a lab petri dish and then like, but then can you imagine like you are one of their lab rats and they just force impregnate you because like we just want to see what this happened. Like you've already been fucking treated like a lab rat and then you're just treated like as a woman you're treated like a walking womb half the time anyway, but even worse. Like the implications of if our parents had never escaped and Yashima hadn't gotten us out of what could have fucking transpired up to this. Oh dear God, it's even more horrifying than what the researchers are actually doing, So, like, to be fair to Rio's route, I don't know, maybe lighting this whole place on fire wasn't a bad idea. Maybe this experiment got a lot out of hand. Not a little, a lot out of hand a lot of times ago. Like, a long time ago. You know what I mean? Like, maybe you should have burnt it down a long time ago, Rio. They didn't even need to send you in. They knew. They had to know. How they don't know that there's people with superpowers in here, I don't fucking know, to be fair. Like, researchers are supposed to be smart, but most of them seem kind of stupid here. Something has been bothering me. Sana broke the silence, raising her hand nervously as she looked at Mocha. I was not born with superpowers. Something happened and I became a test subject. Did the same happen to you, Mocha? Sana glanced at Mocha with eyes wide. She nodded. Yeah, something like that. In my case, I wound up outside the colony, half dead. My powers woke up when I was rescued. Half dead? Were you attacked by a vector? No, it wasn't like that. It was... Well, please don't make me talk about this. I'm not the person of interest right now anyway. Well, not as such. Sana shifted her gaze to me again after an awkward pause. All that being said... There's something odd about you. You were attacked by a vector, but instead of turning into one, you got superpowers instead. Right? Huh? I thought back to the vector incident that kicked everything off for me. Those were the two ways of becoming a vector, being altered as an embryo and then nurtured from birth onward, or being the victim of an attack. But until Sana brought it up, I'd forgotten that I'd even been hurt. Oh, we're going to bring up Misaki has not mentioned my birth at all. That attack was what introduced me to the Blooms, but the commander didn't seem surprised that I got superpowers instead of turning into a vector. Again, we know why. A hand landed on my shoulder as I tried to make of everything. Sense of everything, I'm assuming. When I looked up, my eyes met the commander's calm gaze. Hey, if we're gonna continue this conversation, then I need you girls to reveal your true selves. I think I know more about her background than she does herself, but I need you girls to come clean before we talk, or it won't be fair. Their true selves? And how do you know more than I do, Commander? He's like, do you even know your parents' names? No, yeah, right, okay. I mean, we know, but... I was sinking into a mire of confusion, but the warm hand on my shoulder soothed me. I'm sorry, please, go ahead.
Alright, is everyone cool with this?
Sure. No reason to hide anything now.
Right,
Here we go, we're getting our man here! After making sure I was in a good headspace, Kaori had reached a consensus. I was like, why did he only change? Because they're changing individually. I was like, what? It's so funny to do it now because it's like, you know it's coming, but it's still fun. Suddenly, the girls vanished and four strangers stood in their place. I blinked, unable to believe my eyes at first. That's true because at this point, you haven't really spoken to any of them. You know what I mean? Like before, it took Lizzie dying for you to actually like have a moment with any of them. You've seen them like helping out people in the school and you know who they are, but you've never actually spoken to any of them. You punching Lizzie to death when she turns into a vector is basically the catalyst for, you know, running into them more often, talking to them and bonding with them because them in their male form is like, I know what you went through and I'm gonna, you know, and kind of reaching out to you in their other forms, you know? What? It seemed as though they detransformed as I watched, but the four people standing there now were different people, not the girls I knew. And yet you shouldn't really be shocked because we saw Ibuki do it. Tokyo Takato, wasn't it? And Kamui Saibara? Mihaya Araki? Ayamu Mamiya? In that case, my eyes had witnessed something incredible, but my brain refused to accept it. Tokyo stepped in as I tripped over my words.
That's right. We turn into girls when we use our superpowers. I'm Kaori. That's Sena, that's Mocha. And that's Haruka. Well, I guess you know now. You saw it for yourself.
Yeah, but my brain still hasn't processed it yet. I'm running on MS-DOS over here right now in my processing power. This had been the most shocking day of my life by far. My aching brain was going a mile a minute. This is like, her brain is processing as hard as it is for my computer, my first laptop. When you turn, if I were to turn it on right now, 2 hours from now, it might finally boot up. You know what I mean? Now you turn on computers and you're like, oh my God, it took like a minute. Like old computers, you're like, I'll turn it on. I'll be back in an hour. Like, that's why old computers, you turning it on and off wasn't as good for it. And like now you don't need to like leaving your computer on isn't good. Like it's better to turn your computer off. But like back in the day, it was like turning it on and turning it off too many times is like really not good for the computer components. Because it took fucking forever to boot up. It's kind of like a Monday morning when you're like, I'm going to need 3 gallons of coffee, you know? But yeah, so she's just like, she's on the boot up. So she's like, hold on, give me about an hour. I haven't quite booted up yet. My computer is, my brain is old and not working right. Yeah, I saw it. But seeing something and actually believing it, well, I'm just a little shell-shocked, that's all. Kamui sat down and clutched his head. If we were going to pull back the curtain on our true selves, I wish it could have been a little cooler. You know, like revealing our identities while saving her from certain death. Something dramatic. Look at, he's still flirting with us now, listen. What a wasted opportunity. We could have done something epic. This reveal totally lacks pizzazz. Mihaya rolled his eyes at Kamui's disappointment. Oh, grow up. What are you trying to gloss over the fact that we hid our identities? No, wait, Mihaya, why are you so chill? We transformed into dudes in front of a cute girl. I was just in a skirt, you know? Yeah, but I like dudes in skirts, so... Just saying. You're like, yeah, but actually a man who can wear a skirt and pull it off? I'm into it. I get it. It's a bit embarrassing for you. Mihaya nodded, which only served to fuel Kamui's overreaction further. I know, but like, Mihaya, I still love... I love Mocha the best. Like, Kaori and Mocha are my 2 favorites. Like, I don't know. Although Haruka's pretty cute too. I think Mocha's my favorite of the girls. Just because there's something about him, just like, she's so adorable. But I love Kaori because, like, the juxtaposition of Tokyo and Kaori is just the best. He's like, well, whatever. I don't know. I'm gonna go take a nap. And then she's like, gung-ho! And she's got the cutest Muppet faces. Like, there's just something about her saucer fucking eyes and the goofy faces she makes that I love to death. And then Kamui got the giant fucking pigtails. Still cute. Oh, their girl forms are adorable. Oh. Mihaya, you look just as much of a dork as me right now.
I hope you know that. Ugh. I've gotten so used to them in their girl forms that now it's like my brain is like, wait, okay. Now I gotta remember who's who God name was. That's actually the hardest part. In the very beginning, I was like, I gotta remember who's who and get the voices down to remember which guy is which one of the girls and like do that. But I'm so used to them in their Bloom's form that sometimes like I know you've noticed, but I'm like, Kamui, that's his name. I want to be like Sena. What the fuck is her name when she's a dude? Like, I forget sometimes. So now we just went from all of our girlfriends to now our boyfriends, and I'm like, I'm very confused. The game's fun. I like it, though. Anyway.
I admit, I feel a bit awkward, too. I don't know how Tokyo can just stand there totally at ease with everything that's going on,
because he is, like, half asleep.
I'm not at ease. I'm just not making a big deal out of it. Your talent for remaining calm, no matter the circumstances, I don't know if it's good or bad.
I burst into laughter before I could stop myself. The other three glanced at me, clearly irritated.
We revealed our true self to you and you're laughing about it.
Still laughing, I waved my hand to indicate that they'd misunderstood. No, I'm not making fun of you. It's just that I'm so relieved. Nothing's really changed. You're still the same girls I know. I was just thinking how lucky I am to be part of such a great team. And man harem formed. It was true, their outward appearances had changed, but they still felt warm and familiar. It was as if a small piece of my life clicked back into place amidst all the chaos. I felt relieved. The others understood what I was getting at.
Don't say I ever thought of us as a great team. It's just like you to say something like that in a situation like this.
Seriously? But I'm glad to see you smile again, regardless of the reason. Yeah, to be honest, your laughter cheered me up a bit, too.
Same. We have a lot of serious stuff to talk about, so thanks for lightening the mood a bit. I was feeling pretty stressed out, to be honest.
Me too. Honestly, I was afraid to keep listening to the commander's story, but thanks to you guys, I feel like I can shoulder it now. He's like, ha ha ha, right, time for the trauma train part 2. I felt the tension melt from my shoulders as I calmly turned to the commander. Commander, I'm ready. Tell me everything you know. Don't leave anything out. I can accept whatever you have to say. The commander nodded, then resumed his explanation. All right, I'll start with the story of me and Professor Yashima. Professor Yashima? Do you mean Uncle Yashima? You know him, Commander? Know him? I worked under him in Project Environmental Adaptation. He was a mentor of sorts. The commander went on to tell me about my parents, test subjects T060 and S474, and the experiments they endured. The first generation. You mean my mom and dad were the first test subjects for the genetic engineering project headed by Uncle Yashima? Yeah, that's the long and short of it. But Professor Yashima didn't regard your parents as mere lab rats. He gave them names, Togo and Sana. He treated them as his friends. No, you're being a jerk. I'm just sitting here with my remote and you're biting my hand. I'm not going to pet you because you're being nasty. Oh, dear God. Fine. You were sitting nice and calmly, and now you're getting fidgety. We only have a few more minutes, but the last time we sat here for like 2 seconds too long, or you did this, you just took a giant shit on me because you're a big fat jerk. Go over here. The boy. If you had gone before we came upstairs, like I told you to, it wouldn't be so uncomfortable. But you're a big fat jerk. Bird's a big fat jerk, in case you didn't know. He's a big fat jerk. He's a big fat jerk. I love you, but you're a big fat fucking jerk. And besides, every time we do that, half the time the headset gets pulled out, and then the sound sounds all glitchy, and everybody thinks I don't know what I'm doing. And I don't know what I'm doing, but I want them to think that I know what I'm doing. Jerk. Do you feel better? You're very fidgety and bratty. You're very bitey and bratty. You're so mean. You're so very mean lately. You're so very mean lately. He's grouchy. He's a crabby, grouchy bird. It's a little dark up here. Anyway. Togo, Sana. My parents had been formless in my memory for a long time, but now they started to take shape.
The commander explained that my mom and dad were raised in the lab as test samples. They had no human freedoms to speak of. Well, not exactly! Test subjects don't usually get to bang each other. I thought about how much it probably meant to them to have Uncle Yashima give them names and treat them like friends amidst such a life. The thing is, they didn't know any better. Like, they did not grow up knowing that humans had names. They're like, this is my name, T060. Like, I've never even seen their faces. But somehow I can imagine them smiling when Uncle Yashima said their names aloud for the first time. I mean, we know that's true. Were they happy? I spoke without thinking. The commander looked at me sympathetically before answering. And they seemed to be happy based on what I saw. And they had Professor Yashima and they had you. Tears started to well up in my eyes. Kamui spotted them and flew into a small tizzy. Of course. Hey, Misaki, we just get her smiling. Quit making her cry. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to make her cry by telling her all this. I composed myself as the commander fumbled to explain the purpose of his explanation to Kamui. I'm okay. I'm not crying because I'm sad exactly. It's just overwhelming to hear my mom and dad loved me. I don't remember ever feeling that, so I just started tearing up without realizing. I pulled my pendant out of my pocket and clutched it tightly to my chest. I could feel my parents' love spill from the pendant and into my heart. That's true. Your parents were gone by the time you were old enough to know anything. Yeah, that's right. My first memories are of being raised in the orphanage.
And yet you had a low profile until you joined the Blooms. Your existence was kind of taboo.
Taboo? I blinked and Tokyo jumped in to explain.
Rumors went around that 2 of the first-generation test subjects were missing. We never knew they had a kid, though. I heard they were 2 very promising subjects. If the researchers got wind about them having a child, they would have scoured the land to find it. Oh, so you were protected by the commander and Professor Yoshima. I must have helped your family escape.
The commander nodded. That's right. Professor Yashima asked me to keep watching over the kid, even after they'd all escaped and fled. After your parents passed and Professor Yashima left Theta, I was more watchful than ever. The day it happened, I was terrified. And do you mean the day she was attacked by the Vector? You acted like your normal self from my perspective. I didn't even see you flinch. He's just a good actor! Leave him alone! Poor Misaki. I chuckled at Mihaya's sarcastic remark. Mihaya, how dare you mock my inner turmoil? My emotions were in complete disarray. I had to hide it, that's all. You and Ayamu are sharp. Well, you went a bit too far. You made it look like you couldn't have cared less. Whenever things are going badly for you, Misaki, smile. It's an easy tell. There's no need to roast me, Kamui. The commander seemed to have regained his composure. Perhaps he felt lighter after telling me the secret he'd locked away for so long. I love him so much. Hearing that the commander had watched over me majorly improved my impression of him. Until now, I had never had any idea that someone was watching over me. He kept it all on the down low so I could live normally. He's very kind, he is. In any case, I was beyond relieved when she didn't turn into a Vector. Her parents' genes stepped up to the challenge, I guess.
They were special people, weren't they? Is that why Ibuki took notice of her, too?
Partly. Ibuki also had contact with her parents back when they all lived in the research lab. Ibuki was a talented child in his own right. Seems natural they'd form a connection. Ryo, who'd been listening silently until this point, piped up. Ibuki believes there's something special about her, too. No doubt about it. It struck me as odd that Ryo was narrating how Ibuki felt when Ibuki wasn't even present. I pointed out as much. Narrating, sorry. You sound pretty sure about that. How come? Because Ibuki made that antibody shot that you used to save your friend. And those antibodies were constructed from your genetic profile. Ibuki's been exploring that field, and he's been interested in you for a while. And then came a certain day when I obtained your antibodies at Ibuki's request. Certain day? At first I couldn't remember a moment when Ryo would have had a chance to harvest my DNA, but what he said next brought it all back to me. If I recall correctly, I grabbed a sample from you when I treated your wounds. We already knew this happened because they showed him, his shadow out there talking to Muravi and everybody, and you're like, okay, he stole my DNA. We knew. She's injured. She needs basic first aid.
I can administer that here if desired.
Oh, that's right. You got my genetic profile just from that?
Yeah, wasn't hard to do.
I see. That's a pretty amazing feat, but he's so casual about it.
Incidentally, Ibuki used your DNA for other stuff besides synthesizing antibodies.
That sounds inappropriate.
He tried injecting it into vectors on top of other experiments.
You know, so you're experimenting on vectors like humans experimented on humans. So like, I mean, he's like, let me see if it cures them. So like, he was doing less vile things, to be fair.
You sound pretty laid back for someone who's telling us quite serious information. And that aside, how long has this been going on for? Is any of this connected to how the vectors are getting more active and violent lately?
We all turned to Rio, waiting for his answer to Ayamu's question. He shrugged in resignation.
Yeah, it does. The antibodies also give vectors the ability to mobilize during the daytime. Apparently that was a surprise even to Ibuki. He was curious, so he decided to bring vectors near Theta during the day to see what had happened.
Okay. So that's true, actually, because I never really thought about the difference. Because they always attacked at night. But, like, and it was like, but we asked that in one of the things, are they nocturnal? No. Then they kind of brush it off, but, like, then suddenly they started attacking during the day. And they were attacking during the day because that was after they go, okay, actually, that's an interesting little factoid. Okay, all right. You mean, Kamui shot me a sharp look and spoke in a hurry when he saw me react to what was being said.
Hold on! Stop that bad train of thought right there! You're thinking the reason vector attacks are all your fault, right? That's absolutely not the case, got it?
But Kamui was right on the money. That's exactly where my thoughts were going. I looked at him, surprised by the sharpness in his voice. But it's not your fault. Your blood might have done it, but you had nothing to do with it. You didn't do it, you know?
You can't start thinking like that. Your genetic profile was stolen. You're innocent. And Rio, where do you get off just casually saying things that are obviously going to upset her?
Rio sighed lightly at Kamui's irritation.
I was just trying to explain what happened with Ibuki. I'm sorry for being insensitive, though.
Hearing Kamui stick up for me made me feel a bit better. I was able to get back on track. So, what you're getting is that Ibuki thinks I'm special enough to steal my genetic material and start doing experiments with it, right?
Yes, that sums it up.
Ibuki must have been pretty interested in me to obtain my DNA and perform experiments. Or maybe he wasn't so much intrigued by me as he was my parents. Maybe that's what he was really interested in. Kamui was kind to come to my defense, but the fact remains that this all only happened because of me, because of who I am. The one redeeming factor of all this is that my DNA was used to save Lizzie. I felt torn up inside. The commander then posed a question to Rio.
Let's talk about you now, Rio. You've been focused on this girl as much as I have. Although in your case, I doubt it was because you were concerned for her well-being. I only took a special interest in her because I was fulfilling Ibuki's request. And that's all there is to it, really.
Yeah, okay, I mean, I know what happened in your realm. Listen! I am the main character. Everyone is here to fawn over me, except for Yashima and Misaki, because they're basically like my other dads. My dad and they're like my uncle and my other uncle. So my two uncles. So that would be inappropriate and creepy. If they were my brother, that's a different story, but my uncles, that's inappropriate and creepy. You know? Even if we believe that, you still haven't told us the entire truth.
You think there's more to this guy besides him
conspiring with the vectors?
Indeed. Rio's been observed acting in odd ways. I can't make sense of it. Obviously, I can't watch him 24/7, but I've seen him go outside Theta, and that caught my interest. Outside? Is that something he could easily do? Ayamu shook his head.
No, you can only go outside the colony if you have special permission, and only in certain circumstances. Research work, for example.
If Misaki doesn't know what Rio's up to, then it's not work-related. The whole thing smells fishy to me.
Rio remained silent as we cast aspersions on him. Beneath his usual mask of indifference, his eyes started to look a little troubled.
Rio, I brought you here instead of having you detained because I wanted to hear your side of the story. I can't think of you as a bad guy, even now that I know you've been fraternizing with the Vectors. All the time we've spent working together has to count for something. I know you're not that kind of person.
I know we're over time, but it's like there's no good place to stop.
Misaki,
Rio stopped himself, but it was clear he was wrestling with something within himself. Mihaya chose that moment to turn up the heat.
You may as well spit it out. It's not like we're gonna pounce on you this second. That's right. It's like Ibuki said. Let's get the truth out there about everything we've been hiding. All of us. Oh, but that excludes this one here. She hasn't hidden anything.
Kamui gave me a meaningful glance, and I cleared my throat, determined. Please talk to us, Rio. Things have already come this far. I want to know everything so I can answer Ibuki's question properly. At this point, I don't think I'll be shocked by anything you say. I can accept it, so please...
No, I'm pretty sure this was... I wouldn't say the most shocking thing, but yes. They kind of hit it well, but I mean, like, don't get me wrong. I thought in the beginning, are we an experiment inside of an experiment? Like, I was like, we're just a bubble. This is and then we went outside and I was like, oh, okay, never mind. But I wasn't really thinking we were living in a bubble inside of a bigger bubble. But that actually was the case, so not actually surprising, to be fair. Despite me saying I was prepared, Rio's revelation went far beyond anything I had imagined. Oh, perfect. I was like, that line is actually like I was in my head, I was like, you know what? It really depends, but like, that's a perfect transition line. And they faded to black, so it counts. And that's a great, it was like, what's he revealing? Oh my God, you guys are gonna have to wait. It's like a cliffhanger, but we already know what he's gonna say. But anyway, I will see you guys next time. Remember to give the video a big thumbs up and subscribe to see more.